From the Yucatan coast, Mexico, February 2000. La yema, the yolk. The pale blue egg of day cracks and releases a dark, deep, yellow yolk of moon. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 204. Coming to you live from New England, from the usually over-easy, but tonight wild, wind-scrambled coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet, illuminator, and guiding spirit in the poetosphere, Colin Goedecke, a voice here and elsewhere for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's broadcast was calling all bread lovers, taking up the staff of life, the universal staple, and what we cast on life's waters, and the loaves and fishes of abundance the world sometimes brings us, feeds us, our beings. By all accounts, it was a well-breaded journey into different dimensions of, and reflections on, and feelings about bread, including makers and bakeries, eating and eaters, sharers, feasters, and songwriters, Shakespeare included. This week it's sunny side up, hatching into a world of eggs, angles edible to metaphorical, from the curious to the colorful to the flavorful, the familiar and surprising places and ways eggs show up and go down, and figure into things of all kinds, culinary, literary, even mythical, and more. So I've whisked together a show of cultural commentary, poetry, quotes, anecdotes, and inquiry around this theme, including some sharings from various listeners, followers, and friends I invited views and stories from. Let's see how the egg rolls. Let's begin with a summer picnic in Holland. On the River Vecht, East Holland, 1998. Die Koeienpicknick, the cow's picnic. Spread out in the shade on the dike above the water, ringed by cows, a déjeuner sur l'herbe of rosé and laughter, tomatoes in clouds, pâté lathered on bread, stories spooned on tongues, hard-boiled eggs eaten with salt and sunshine, a basket of fruits and friendships shared, bodies bared and bathed in the Vecht, borne by the same current that carries our blue boat back home. Central Park West, New York City, December 2001, 10:10 a.m. Scrambled egg-white clouds, a thumb of sun on the red bricks below the roofline, the familiar foreground sound of sparrows on the fire escape, the distant calls of children playing ball and tag in the park, the trucks and cars brushing by like so many brooms on the boulevard. Mexico, the Mayan coast, February 2003. For Joseph Cornell. Found washed up on an ocean walk. 2 green coconuts, a wine cork, a wooden leg, a skate egg, an empty sea turtle shell, a Havana cigar band, a false mustache, a blue rubber ball, a broken parasol. A giant blue and yellow polka-dotted Easter egg. Mark Anderson's poem, Easter Eggs. As I hold one steady for my 3-year-old while he slaps it with garish red, yellow, black, changing my hand and his to bright apparitions around that perfectly ordinary whiteness, I wonder what strange need began this, drove us to add these brittle ornaments to spring's own, the pastel flowers of bulbs already open, the skies deepening blue, the enfolding green incipient everywhere. But he sees differently, chooses these fall colors to wonder at, then suddenly wonders most of all at my hand and how he's transformed it, laughing as he paints it again and again till the egg takes color from my mere touch. And I understand these eggs are not for spring, not newness. They belong to that oldest world we've carried always within us, ablaze with magnificent birds that could only hatch from such brilliance, ourselves savagely radiant in our own colors. Thank you, Mark Anderson. This is one of mine on Easter Sunday, April 2023, last April, year back. Easter eggs. Not the kind from the carton I used to paint, hard-boiled and cooled and hunt for as a Catholic kid, or the chocolate kind I'd happily unfoil, chew, and swallow. But Easter eggs as colorful, sweet, hidden messages, not really hiding when I simply look or listen. This spring day, into the landscape, this dayscape, one's ready to be seen, heard, understood, in all the greening boughs and birds' mouths, in the pour of morning sun and now flowering buds, in the froth and foam of the in-waving sea, messages that the earth is alive, is vibrant, is rising, and so am I. From Wikipedia, egg as symbol. The egg is a universal symbol representing the primordial source from which the deity and the materials for the creation of the cosmos come into existence. It is an image frequently found in the cosmogonies of many cultures and civilizations, including the Hindu, Chinese, Egyptian, Greek, Syrian, Persian, and Finnish. In theosophical literature, it represents the primordial substance and the germ of consciousness, logos, in it, in their various stages of development, from the unmanifested and undifferentiated to the fully manifested. To distinguish among the different stages, the egg is qualified with adjectives such as, quote, eternal, quote, virgin, quote, mundane, and so on. Different piece on the symbolism of the egg. In Chinese tradition, before heaven and earth became separated, chaos resembled a hen's egg. After 18,000 years, a number reflecting a long, undetermined length of time, the egg broke open. The heavy elements formed the earth, yin, and the light ones became the heavens, yang. In graves in Boeotia, figures of Dionysus holding an egg in his hand have been found. Orphic tradition prohibited the eating of eggs. They were offered to the dead as food and token of rebirth. The egg is also linked to the symbolic qualities of quietude, like the home, the nest, the shell, or the mother's womb. It is also associated with the idea of the seed of spiritual life by the alchemical tradition. Carl Jung, from his Red Book, set the egg before you, the God in his beginning, and behold it, and incubate it with the magical warmth of your gaze. And I am the egg that surrounds and nurtures the seed of the God in me. As it was put in theosophy, within the egg, the universe is breathed out and breathed in. Fabergé eggs. Jeweled eggs created by the jewelry firm House of Fabergé in St. Petersburg, Russia. Only 57 survive today. The most famous are the imperial eggs, made for the Russian emperors Alexander III and Nicholas II as Easter gifts for their wives and mothers. They're worth many millions of dollars and have become symbols of opulence. Guess nobody's going to be hard-boiling them or scrambled Fabergé eggs. Imagine that. Well, I found a great poem to pair with that. On that, by Elizabeth Spires. Fabergé's Egg. Switzerland, 1920. Dear friend, quote, called away from my country. I squared the egg and put it in a letter that all may read, gilding each word a little, so that, touched, it yields to a secret stirring, a small gold bird on a spring suddenly appearing to sing a small song of regret, elation that overspills all private bounds, although you ask, as I do, what now do we sing to, sing for? Before the Great War, I made a diamond-studded coach 3 inches high with rock crystal windows and platinum wheels to ceremoniously convey a speechless egg to court. All for a bored czarina. My version of history fantastic and revolutionary as I reduced the scale to the handheld dimensions of a fairy tale, hiding tiny imperial portraits and cameos in eggs of pearl and bone, little bonbons, caskets. The old riddle of the chicken and the egg is answered thus. In the Belle Époque of the imagination, the egg came first, containing as it does both history and uncertainty. My excesses inducing unrest among those too hungry to see the bitter joke of an egg one cannot eat. Oblique oddity, an egg is the most beautiful of all beautiful forms, a box without corners in which anything can be contained, anything except time. That old jeweler who laughed when he set me ticking. Here, among the clocks and watches of a country precisely ordered and dying, I am not sorry. I do not apologize. 3 times I kiss you in memory of that first Easter, that first white rising, and send this message, as if it could save you. Even the present is dead. We must live now in the future. Yours, Fabergé. Thank you, Elizabeth Spires, from her collection Annonciade, or it might be Annonciade. Long Beach, New York, 2017, with a nod to a friend's heirloom chickens and their lovely pastel eggs for Irvi Wu and her poulets. Not chicken feed. The silver-laced Polish, head plumed like a gallant lancer. The Swedish flower hen Blumenhöns, all petal soft, dappled brown light. The Plymouth Rock, rock solid like the wide-beamed Mayflower and its unflappable Puritans. And one buff Orpington, its name and stride every inch a Wyatt Earp sideman. Out to the chickens, Irvies, and others. Well, you may have guessed or hoped that I had some questions for you about eggs, and I do. I'm curious where and how much eggs play a part in your life, in your diet, maybe in your dreams, or your arts or work. Who knows? And if they appear on your plate at home or out and about, what kind do you love to make or eat? Scrambled, poached, over easy or sunny side up? Hard or soft-boiled, fried, shirred, creamed, coddled? And what do you like pairing them with? Bacon? Buttered toast? Maybe Scotch eggs with sausage? Okay. When I heard of those as a kid, I imagined plaid eggs. I just heard from a friend about a man in Mexico that she met on the Pacific coast who eats 8 a day. I think the Mexicans would say, no manches. No way. Can you make a perfect omelet? Well, I know that the master chef Jacques Pepin can still, in his 90s, with great finesse, no matter what pan you hand him. That's what I've been told. I'd like to see that. Did you ever think how ubiquitous eggs are? How many things they're in, from cakes, quiches, and frittatas to pasta, Caesar salad, mayonnaise, to ice cream, soufflés, eggnogs, and the famous original egg cream soda. Although there really is no egg in it, but they call it that, but we're going to get to that. You know, all of this keeps the chickens of the world busy. No time for crossing roads for them. And what about all the other symbols that they serve as, beyond the usual ones, of fertility and for Christians of resurrection, like the ancient notion I spoke of the world egg, the navel of the world, the mysterious center that contains in seed all that the cosmos will contain in its fully manifested state, all that's essential to create life. And then in nature, in the wild, the fascinating universe of eggs, from the beloved blue robin's egg to the eggs of sea turtles, swans, most fish, and not least paging the sturgeon and its caviar. Snakes, seahorses, penguins, the ostrich, and the platypus, to name but a few, which calls our minds to the nests of all these creatures, flying ones at least. From the smallest, the hummingbird, to the largest, the condor, and way back in time, in the dinosaur age, the pterodactyl and other pterosaurs. Well, do you have a good egg story to share? As a kid or as an adult, I'd love to hear it. Got a few for us from others today, but you can still send me one along after the show. And maybe that was from a meal. Maybe it was from a sight. Maybe witnessing a magic trick or an appearing or disappearing egg, or perfectly balancing an egg as you can on a solstice or equinox. I've tried it many times. It works. And then among all the idioms, from being an egghead to building a nest egg, egging someone on, or driving around in an old egg beater, was there ever a time you wound up with egg on your face? And what was that like? And did you ever lay a golden egg like the fabled goose, create something valuable? Or have to walk on eggshells with someone? Or maybe do still? And what good people, good eggs, goes the expression, do you know in your life? And what makes for one in your book? And are you one yourself? Hope you are. If you're listening, you probably are. It's my guess. Well, here's what came from egging a handful of listeners, friends, and others on to share a memory story or answer to one of the questions I just read for the show. So, from Tom in New Rochelle, New York. I'm on my way to Midtown for a rainy day tour. No sunny side of the street for me today, but at least I'll be on a coach bus. My egg story. Well, years ago, when I was baking at home for friends and family, I loved to make fresh berry tarts. Very French, s'il vous plaît. I usually like to improvise here and there. The base or filling for a fresh strawberry tart would be a custard, egg-based of course. One favorite improv would be to add Grand Marnier to the custard. Very delicious. Well, one time I was making breakfast for some overnight guests. Scrambled eggs. I thought, why not add some Grand Marnier? It was so delicious in the custard tart. I think you know what's going to happen. A word of advice from experience. Never add Grand Marnier to scrambled eggs. It was inedible. What worked so well for a sweet did not work for a savory. After one bite, nobody took a second bite. A failed improv, to say the least. Well, thank you, Tom. And your words from the wise story. I imagine you cried in your eggs that morning. The leftover eggs that no one was eating, scrambled eggs, salty with tears and sweet with Grand Marnier. Next time, maybe go for a soufflé. My suggestion. Well, listen, friends, there are times when eggs and alcohol mix, like in a true whiskey sour or pisco sour. Well, apropos of that, I was doing a side gig back in time as a mixologist at an upper crusty private club. The first time I had to make a member a whiskey sour, I asked the head bartender, where are the eggs? He said, oh, we use powdered eggs. We can't use fresh ones. I was speechless. I was astounded. I nearly fainted. Unimaginable. I proceeded to use fresh eggs from the club kitchen on the QT. Soon, everyone who had a whiskey sour from my hands noticed how much more delicious their cocktails suddenly were. Those whiskey sours, and from then on would only have ones that Colin made for them. Vindication. But back to pairings, that do work. There was one of 2 summers. I was in Greece, on an island in the Cyclades. I was visiting a close Greek friend, my host, where we cooked every day, often together, but also me a good bit for him that particular year, and with pleasure. Well, that summer I had to pause and make a side trip to London. I returned to resume my Aegean time, but with a surprise. The next morning that I got back, on the sun-washed terrace overlooking the harbor where we took all our meals, I laid out the table and brought him to sit down. To his surprise, fresh bread from the nearby bakery, a plate of scrambled eggs with fresh thyme, some roasted black sausage, and a bottle of, surprise, fine single malt whiskey. He exclaimed, "Whiskey and eggs!" and for breakfast? I said, "Why not? This is it after all. If not now, when? And we feasted well that morning on those foods of the gods. We did. Well, there you have that. I was speaking to my friend Chloe in the English Cotswolds. It was her 71st birthday today. And she said, I feel like I'm coming out of an egg, rebirthing into a new cycle of life. Isn't that beautiful? Maybe that's how we should think about all our birthdays. Rehatching, hatching anew. Paul from Cape May, New Jersey, sent me a vignette about his wife as a little girl playing egg wars at Easter. After they had an Easter egg hunt, they'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, egg war, and have at it. So I looked up this game. I'd never heard about it, called egg tapping also. And here's a little scoop from Wikipedia. Egg tapping, also known as egg fight, egg knocking, egg boxing, egg wars, is a traditional Easter game. The rule is simple. You hold a hard-boiled egg and tap the egg of another player with your own egg, intending to break their egg without breaking your egg. As with any other game, it has been subject to cheating, using eggs with cement, alabaster, and even marble cores. What do you think about that? Yes, egg wars. Maybe you've been in them before. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Susan. I've got one more. This is a sort of a robin's egg story, we could say. This is from B in Rhode Island, but I'm gonna. I decided to instead of transcribing it, I just saved the clip of her telling me this short story. So play it for you. Hold on.
Okay, so besides my Halloween vandalism,
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Younger days.
What do you mean your Halloween vandalism? You mean throwing eggs?
Oh yeah, of course. Leave them on your neighbor's doorstep after trick or treat, whatever. Trick or treat. Yeah. Okay, here's the touching story. So my uncle, who's not an uncle by blood, but just the husband of my mother's best friend, he was this Irish cop in New York City. And Bill Doty, all right, this big strapping guy. And they had 5 kids, and we were considered cousins, we just frolicked with them. So they had no money. And Gladys, his wife, my aunt, says, Bill, you got to do something. So just picture this scene. Here's this big, strapping Irish cop who has to go next door and ask the neighbor to borrow an egg. So he rings doorbell, and the neighbor, oh, of course, we can give you as many eggs as you want. Nope, I only want 1 egg. Carefully carries the egg back over to the Doty household, and Gladys manages to make dinner for 7 people. I find that so delicately touching.
Yes, that is. I can envision. I'm envisioning that.
The humility and the dignity that he had to carry in order to feed the family. That's my 1 egg story.
That's a good story. I feel like a tear in my eye about that.
Yeah, it is. Just the visual on it.
Yeah.
The responsibility at that particular time. And Gladys and Bill were depression babies. So, what is that? Not pride, but frustration.
Yes. Wow.
That something as basic as feeding their offspring.
Good life lesson. Good humbling life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's my egg story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you for that, B. Thank you very much, and everyone who sent things in, and whatever else may be coming that I haven't gotten yet, or that you may be sending as a result of listening. Would love that. All right, let's crack along. Linda Pastan, egg. In this kingdom, the sun never sets. Under the pale oval of the sky, there seems no way in or out. And though there is a sea here, there is no tide. For the egg itself is a moon glowing faintly in the galaxy of the barn, safe, but for the spoon's ominous thunder, the first delicate crack of lightning. Wonderful. Thank you, Linda Pastan. I didn't know that poem first. I know many, but not that one. Okay. Well, eggs as food. We'd have some fun with this. Wikipedia, humans and their hominid ancestors have consumed eggs for millions of years. In Greece, around 800 BCE, the quail had been the primary source of eggs. In Thebes, in Egypt, the tomb of Haramhab, dating to approximately 1420 BCE, shows a depiction of a man carrying bowls of ostrich eggs and other large eggs, presumably those of the pelican, as offerings. In ancient Rome, eggs were preserved using a number of methods, and meals often started with an egg course. In the Middle Ages, they were forbidden during Lent because of their richness. That. Gull eggs, seagull eggs, are considered a delicacy in England. Never had those. We have a lot of gulls here, but I haven't seen the eggs. Pheasant eggs and emu eggs are edible but less widely available. In many countries, wild bird eggs are protected, thank heavens, by laws which prohibit the collecting or selling of them. For the month of January 2019, the U.S. alone produced 9.41 billion eggs. It's funny they say that the U.S., well, of course, it was the chickens of the United States. I'm not sure they consider themselves to have a nationality, but this is from worldatlas.com, countries that consume the most eggs. What would you guess? Well, they say here the countries leading in the average consumption per person are Japan, Paraguay, China, Mexico, the Ukraine, Malaysia, Brunei, Slovakia, Belarus, and the Russian Federation. But that. Japan consumes more eggs than anywhere else in the world. On average, a Japanese individual eats 320 eggs annually. Divide that by, it's almost an egg a day. Well, with a nod to my dear Filipino friends, Irvi, Sulit, and her beautiful mother, Sunny, who is always to me sunny side up. Kwek, also known as tokninging, common Filipino street food consisting of battered and fried quail eggs. Well, maybe they'll make some of those for me next time I see them. Kwek. I'll just say that. Maybe they'll appear. How about the in China, the century egg or 100-year-old egg? Well, I encountered that in China myself. It's a delicacy. Eggs that have been preserved in a combination of salt, quicklime, clay, rice hulls, and ash for a few days or even weeks. Well, when I heard 100 years, I thought for sure it had been certainly years. Chicken, quail, or duck eggs can be used. So, decades back, I was in Beijing on a big adventure, and that was right around Tiananmen time, square time. And I was at many banquets, but one in particular, and they were serving 100-year-old eggs. Well, I swerved out of the way of those. I was not keen to eat anything even remotely close to 100 years old. And I also passed on the whole fried frogs they served that night. But I was close to them, but I didn't eat them. How about raw eggs? This is from myrecipes.com. A brief history of drinking raw eggs. So we'll dial back a little bit. This is I thought, definitely intriguing. During the Middle Ages and through the 17th century in England, raw eggs were popular additions to beer and wine. Someone who was sick might be prescribed beer mixed with a raw egg, honey, and some herbs. Syllabub, a popular dessert beverage, was made from whipping raw egg whites with cream and wine and then letting the mixture curdle overnight. A common flu or cold medicine was posset, a sort of proto-eggnog made by whipping eggs with cream, sugar, spices, and beer or wine into a thin custard. My goodness. Eggs also had the miraculous effect of filtering the beer or wine they were added to. As Foss said, just a little bit of egg white and something clarifies it and makes all of the particulates in it drop to the bottom. So if you have a cloudy, traditionally made beer, when you put the egg in, it becomes more clear. I remember this from my winemaking days. It's called, if we had to fine it, but I don't remember we ever had to go that far with the egg to do that. But how about this? The combination of beer and eggs carried over to colonial America, where the flip became fashionable, a frothy cocktail still popular today, made from alcohol mixed with sugar, spices, and egg. It says, in cold weather, a hot poker would be used to mix it, cooking the egg slightly, caramelizing the sugar, and making what Foss calls, quote, something that's kind of like an alcoholic marshmallow. I got a hot poker. What are you doing with that hot poker? I'm going to stir your drink. Oh, my goodness. In the 1800s, a glass of beer with a raw egg or two cracked into it became a reliable breakfast for physical laborers like miners in the U.S. As Mark Noon writes in Yuengling, The History of America's Oldest Brewery, in contrast to distilled liquors, beer was not viewed as an intoxicant in the 19th century. In fact, I remember this from another show, that people were drinking all day long, drinking beer. In fact, employers gave it to them for the day, while they were working. But it was considered a source of nourishment, a responsible way to consume some calories and nutrients in the morning before work or on a break between shifts, but I think also during shifts. In mining towns in northeastern Pennsylvania, bars would open as early as 5 a.m. in the morning to accommodate the crowd gathering to order what they called a, quote, miner's breakfast, 2 raw eggs cracked into a beer and a shot of whiskey on the side. Whoa. Okay. Have you ever had eggs raw, other than in a whiskey sour? And if so, what were you doing? What was happening? Good heavens. All right. Someone mentioned to me that the eggs breathe, and I said, oh, I have to find out about that. So I went to the Accidental Scientist, Science of Cooking, and they do. So the shell, bumpy and grainy in texture, an eggshell is covered with as many as 17,000 tiny pores. So that means that air and moisture can pass through its pores. The shell has a thin outermost coating called the bloom or cuticle that helps keep out bacteria and dust. So it's a bit like skin. Isn't that interesting? The breathing egg. I also looked up some fun egg facts for World Egg Day. I don't know when that falls, but there is one. This is from Valco, VALCO.com. A hen turns her egg nearly 50 times a day to keep the yolk from sticking to the side. When it comes to the number of eggs laid each year, Iowa leads the nation with more than 14.8 billion eggs produced annually. And there are several reasons why we commonly eat chicken eggs instead of duck or turkey eggs, because chickens lay more and they need less nesting space, and they don't have the strong mothering instincts of turkeys and ducks, who probably don't want to have us take those eggs away. I mentioned earlier about the egg cream. There might be some lovers of it out there. It's not quite my thing. I think I tried it once. Someone made it for me. But if you are one, the New York egg cream's recipe and history from what'scookingamerica.com. The old-time New York thirst quencher is sweet and full of fizz. Despite its name, the egg cream contains neither eggs nor cream. In the beginning, it was a soda produced almost exclusively in New York, particularly in Brooklyn. Basic ingredients are milk, seltzer, and chocolate syrup, traditionally made in a small Coke-style glass. For many years, it remained a product sold only through New York soda fountains because bottled versions were impossible to make. Egg creams became so popular that the author Elliot Wilensky wrote in his book, When Brooklyn Was the World, 1920 to 57, quote, a candy store minus an egg cream, in Brooklyn at least, was as difficult to conceive of as the earth without gravity. Not that. Okay. Incident in the Coffee Shop by Laura Foley. I'm having my usual. OJ, Bialy, eggs poached easy. I've known this waitress years. Florence has met my kids, my son's girlfriends, my lover who I'm breaking up with. Today, when she asks if everything's okay, I begin to cry before realizing she means the food. Thank you, Laura Foley. From foodnews.com. 1 in 4 Americans thinks putting ketchup on eggs is perfectly acceptable. Well, my uncle is in that group. I still can't. I remember him pouring the ketchup. I still can't. It was quite a sight. I tried to forget about it, but it came back to my mind when I saw this article. Oh, my God. I consider it rather sacrilegious, but, no knock on anybody else, but I couldn't possibly do it. But 47% on toppings of people prefer to sprinkle their eggs with cheese more than anything else. Anything else being bacon, which 24% said is their favorite dressing, followed by sausage, 9% mushrooms, then onions, red pepper or herbs, and finally spinach. Well, 39% of Americans believe putting ketchup on eggs is straight up gross, meaning 1 in 4 thinks the practice is perfectly acceptable. Choose your egg day dining mates wisely. Oh, my goodness. Okay, a few egg quotes. MFK Fisher, the great food writer, probably one of the most private things in the world is an egg until it is broken. But that. The Irish storyteller, writer, Frank McCourt. Oh, God above, if heaven has a taste, it must be an egg with butter and salt. And after the egg, is there anything in the world lovelier than fresh warm bread and a mug of sweet golden tea? Thank you, Frank. Thank you. And Oscar Wilde. An egg is always an adventure. The next one may be different. That. And then the Russian proverb, I found that too. Love and eggs are best when they are fresh. About that. Skip the bacon. I'd rather have a serving of love with my eggs today. Yeah. Okay. Well, this next poem of mine actually came to me as I was observing a fellow in New York City one March day in the year 2000. He seemed to have stepped out of a time machine. A throwback to the 30s. He ambles past a throwback to the 30s in black and white spectators, a local color character Hammett or Chandler would have cast in the hard-boiled pages of a story, one now brittle with age. The grizzled face, the white hair, the cashmere coat threadbare, like the memories of those breezy, snap-brimmed days on the long avenues, big boulevards of old New York. Everything, head down, dulled now, lusterless. Everything but those damned, immaculate shoes. Well, my mind leapt like there to, as it often eclectically does, to hard-boiled fiction. Hard-boiled fiction. Maybe you're a lover of that. Literary genre that shares some of its characters and settings with crime fiction, especially detective and noir fiction. Typical protagonist is a detective who battles the violence of organized crime that flourished during Prohibition and its aftermath, while dealing with a legal system that has become as corrupt as the organized crime itself. Rendered cynical by this cycle of violence, the detectives of hard-boiled fiction are often anti-heroes. Notable include Dick Tracy, Philip Marlowe, Nick Charles, Mike Hammer, Sam Spade, Lou Archer. Well, from its earliest days, it was published and closely associated with so-called pulp magazines. And you would probably know in 1929, in the 20s, Dashiell Hammett wrote The Maltese Falcon. Both the book and then the great film with Humphrey Bogart. It introduced Sam Spade to the world. He was the ultimate private eye and immortalized by Bogart. A tough, street-smart, wise-ass who doesn't care about the rules. And then we had Raymond Chandler. This is from Sci-Hi blog. Some say the inventor of the hard-boiled detective novel. Certainly a pioneer of it. And he invented the character of the melancholic and ultimately moral private detective, Philip Marlowe. Well, he went to Hollywood as a screenwriter, that Chandler, and wrote Double Indemnity with Billy Wilder, the screenplay for The Blue Dahlia. He collaborated on Strangers on a Train, Hitchcock's film, though he clashed with him. They stopped talking after he made an off-remark about Hitchcock, which I can't repeat on over the air. But a couple of lines from Philip Marlowe's mouth, the detective is detective. I was fired for insubordination. I test very high on insubordination. I remember that line. From Farewell, My Lovely, I like smooth, shiny girls, hard-boiled and loaded with sin. From the high window, on the wide, cool front porches, reaching their cracked shoes into the sun and staring at nothing, sit the old men with faces like lost battles. Yeah. Well, in a related vein of the era and the gamut of gangsters, but in a uniquely lighter, certainly light even, and versus dark alleyway, This next piece one of mine was inspired by the writer Damon Runyon. If you don't know him, what a juicy writer. Someone said, we read Runyon not for the stories, but for the slang, half found on Broadway in the 1920s and 30s and half cooked up in his own head. We read him for sentences like this. If I have all the tears that are shed on Broadway by guys in love, I will have enough salt water to start an opposition ocean to the Atlantic and Pacific, with enough left over to run the Great Salt Lake out of business. I love his writing, so I decided to try and channel him. So I have this riff on the patois of that era and him. It's sort of a gumbo, and it starts with the Amici, which had to do with Don Amici, the actor, but that's the phone. The Amici is the phone, and the word Mazuma is greenbacks, and the reference to the butter and egg man was the money man. So here we go. This is paging Damon Runyon. So I get on the Amici. I hop on the blower, see, to bobber with this dame I'm dizzy with. Listen, dollface, don't blow your wig, but I gotta dangle to another apple tonight. Some stool pigeon dropped a dime on me. I'm going to jump in the boiler and fade for a while, so shake a leg and I'll give you a little whoopee on my way out of town. I'll miss your drumsticks, baby. Don't you worry about Mazuma. I told the butter and egg man to see you right till I get back. Save your glad rags and honey coolers, Abyssinia, before you know it. It'll be all silk again soon, baby. Thank you, Damon Runyon, for inspiring me. Oh, okay, on we go. Well, I waded into, as I like to do, the song and movie scene and book waters for us. This is from singersroom.com. Songs about eggs, just a couple. From rock and roll to hip-hop, from country to pop, eggs have been the subject of lyrical musings in a diverse range of genres. Okay, so Egghead by Benny Goodman. Upbeat instrumental swing jazz piece performed by Benny and his orchestra. How Do You Like Your Eggs in the Morning by Dean Martin. Two vocalists, Martin and Helen O'Connell, trade verses that describe various ways to prepare eggs for breakfast. The lyrics are filled with clever puns and double entendres, making for a fun and flirtatious listening experience. And the great Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong in I'm Putting All My Eggs in One Basket. It's a timeless jazz standard composed by Irving Berlin. The lyrics describe a couple's decision to take a chance on a romantic relationship, and the melody captures the excitement and anticipation of falling in love. Do you know these songs? If not, dial them up sometime. And then a couple of film scenes. This is from another mag.com. Cool Hand Luke, 1967, Paul Newman. The prison inmate who refuses to bend to anyone's rules. He wins boxing matches and poker games, but when he bets he can eat 50 hard-boiled eggs in an hour, one can't help but think he's bitten off more than he can chew. 1985, Tempopol, the Japanese, quote, ramen western comedy, takes food porn to a whole other level. In a steamy scene, a passionate couple embrace and kiss, passing an egg yolk back and forth between them. I don't remember that for some reason. 1976, Rocky. Classic American tale of a small-timer dreaming of making it big. The eponymous boxer wakes before sunup and starts his day with a gut-curdling homemade protein shake of 5 raw eggs. So there's a few. Maybe you've got a favorite scene from some film. And how about growing up? Did you grow up with green eggs and ham, Dr. Seuss? Or have kids that you read that to? Well, I had to go back and look at that again and pull out a little bit. I am Sam, Sam I am. That's Sam I am, that's Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them. Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse? I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am. Dr. Seuss, thank you. And what about the Mother Goose rhyme? she certainly laid a long-lasting nursery rhyme egg with this one. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Thank you, Mother Goose. And is this a story for our times? The world's politicians, I'm wondering about that. And if we'd be better off if most of them fell big and hard and couldn't be reassembled. I'm wondering. Well, let's turn ourselves to nature and the beautiful ways we poets and writers bring them into the picture, eggs onto the page. This is from Punta Bete, Mexico, February 2000, contemplating the night sky there. Plenilunio, full moon. The clouds, costume, the full moon tonight. First with a stellar toupee, followed by a Mastriani mama's boy hairnet, then a vaudeville wig, then a medieval monk's tonsure. Soon after, it's clapped with a too small top hat and voluminous mutton chops. Quick change to a Berlin before the war brush mustache and, last but not least, before El Telón. The cloud-spun curtain closes on scene one. We have the full moon as a luminous egg laid in a lunar nest. I spoke of the symbols of the egg as micro and macrocosm and metaphor. Well, in the 1990s, I felt a great next hatching of my own, an earthly incarnation taking place, and I wrote this. The shell cracks. The shell of the old man cracks. A new man emerges. Naomi Shihab-Nye, boy and egg. Every few minutes, he wants to march the trail of flattened ryegrass back to the house of muttering hens. He too could make a bed in hay. Yesterday the egg so fresh it felt hot in his hand, and he pressed it to his ear while the other children laughed and ran with the ball, leaving him, so little yet, too forgetful in games, ready to cry if the ball brushed him, riveted to the secret of birds caught up inside his fist, not ready to give it over to the refrigerator or the rest of the day. Lovely boy and egg. Thank you, Naomi Shihab-Nye. And Stephen Dunn. Eggs. I never used to like eggs. That conspicuous breaking and ooze like a cow being slaughtered in the kitchen before the steak is served. And my father wanting his sunny side up, which seemed wrong, like exposing yourself. But I loved to look at unbroken eggs. I loved to hold them in my hand and toss them up, always feeling I knew how high was too high, always coming away clean. Years later, I'd discover, through Blake, you can't get away clean. You have to know what's more than enough to know what's enough. The game I played was a coward's game. I liked my eggs hard-boiled at first, then deviled, ice-cold. Scrambled was years off. Breaking and cooking them myself, more years. One Halloween, I stole eggs from the egg farm, extra large, to throw at girls. Loving the shape of eggs, confused by the shape of girls, I loved to see the egg break on their jeans, loved the screams and the stain. Now I suck eggs after making a little hole in the tip. I've made peace with the yolk. I no longer think of the whites as coming face to face with the blind. I almost can forget how the conglomerates have made chickens slaves, the small cages and the perpetual light. I love eggs now. I love women. I keep my eggs to myself. As for the chicken and the egg, I say the egg was first. The egg is perfect. It always was. The chicken, like most children, an afterthought. Thank you, Stephen Dunn, for that. Thank you. Well, now coming into our last sharings and musings for this week, for this time together. Brian Swan, with two N's, S-W-A-N-N. Egg. It starts with a quote by Sean Kane from Wisdom of the Myth Tellers. We are in the position of defining myth by the shape of its absence. Egg. the bluebird's cold, mistimed egg fetched up from the one-legged box after the pair had left for points south and unknown, never, as it turned out, to return. I re-nested in the half-geode by the windowsill where it gleamed, and months, becoming years, seemed about to last forever, grow more consistent with itself, holding its pure blue firmament up over what by now was nothing, till one January day, snow melting to a fast flood, I blew it softly onto my palm so I could hold its cerulean up against new sky, home against home, where it lay weightless and delicate as the Christmas ornament we'd just put away. But when I went to roll it gently back onto its bed and leave it there, I saw a thread, a crack, another, watched it sink in slowly on itself, shard on shard collapsing from my touch and breath, relaxing into the shape of its absence. Egg. Thank you, Brian Swan. Beautiful new poet and poem to me. A poem of mine from Christmas Day, from Rhode Island here, from Shelter Harbor, December 25th, 2021. It rained that Christmas. It rained so much that Christmas Day, it rained saltiness from the nearby sea. It rained quiet passion at first light. Rained heat over winter-cold skin from a wide pouring showerhead. Rained duck eggs and buttered toast onto plates. Wreathed kale and roast tomatoes round the dishes like holly leaves and berries. It rained memories of cherished childhood Christmas times. It rained gentleness and easefulness and deep appreciation for the gifts life has given, keeps giving, without anyone's asking, and joyful anticipation of all the gifts we can each generously rain from our freely giving selves in return. Well, praise for all the egg givers, the egg layers, from the colorful like these to the humble. Devin Johnston, Orpingtons. A pair of Orpingtons, one blue, the other black, with iridescent necks and fine ashen fluff, cackle through the dark, their damp calls close enough to chafe, a friction with no spark. They settle down to roost, two rests along a stave, each curls into itself, comb tucked beneath a wing, as the days grow long enough to kindle in each a yolk, the smallest flame of spring. Lovely. Thank you, Devin Johnson. Another new one. By the way, I do have an answer to the eternal question about which came first, the chicken or the egg. The answer is yes. Next to last, this was for Easter back in 2022, Shelter Harbor, Rhode Island. Pink moon. Pink like a painted egg, an Eastered egg. Shades of cherry blossom, dogwood, magnolia. Grass moon, planting moon, lighting over the greening and flowering earth. Moon of my birth month, full with promise. Moon when the ice breaks. Magzaksika glimui, the Lakota called it. Moon when the ducks return. And last for now, till we're together again here over these airwaves. From Kiowa Island, South Carolina, May 1999. On the easel. A chartreuse skirt of saltgrass hemmed by ribbons of river flowing fast and west. Beyond the outer bank, more green meadow marsh smudged with sepia, ochre, and umber. Stippled with cattails and flecked with zinc-white egrets. The half-land, half-waterscape stretches away to a hazy horizon line, a long layer of red cedar and yellow pine, then up into an island of clouds and clear, egg-blue sky. Thank you again, friends, for leaning in here, for thinking and feeling in, for sharing this egg-centric time together. I'd welcome hearing your experience of this show, Sunny Side Up, or how others you've heard that have touched you in welcome ways. And I invite you to freely share this one out, or the whole Floating Poetry playlist, especially to other egg lovers. If you valued this broadcast, or others, or all of them, I'd welcome a contribution, whatever you feel the value is or has been for you. And this series is listener-supported when donations do come. Every gift supports the work that I do here to conceive and craft and present these programs to keep illuminating and inspiring you and others. If you are making a gift, thank you very much. You can do that by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to the same email. Or you can simply mail a check to me to P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891. Or contribute to the Donate tab at thepoetorialist.com. Is there any theme you'd like to see a future show on that I haven't covered? Let me know, Colin at thepoetisphere.com. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube, currently on the Floating Poetry playlist there, ultimately on other leading platforms. Some know, you may not, these broadcasts come to you through the Poetisphere, the oasis of aliveness I'm guiding, helping people live more deeply, get more out of their lives. You can explore it as a visitor or join as a subscriber. Everyone's welcome. I encourage you to see what it's about and also get a sense of our truly wonderful community of possibilitarians. To make joining even more attractive, I've made month and year-long subscriptions available through the early spring. So till May 20th, 2024, you can have a membership at just $114 a year instead of $190, or $14 monthly instead of $19. You'll see each code to use right on the site at the Join Us tab. Thepoetisphere.com, Poetisphere. You might enjoy the just-released interview that I gave with the soulgoddesslife.com group in the UK. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and elsewhere. The title is Embracing the Poetics of Life, A Journey into Aliveness. Have a listen. Meanwhile, I hope you'll lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, enjoy your eggs and the great nature, nourishment, and gift of them in your days. And not just on your plate, but out in the wild, land to sea to air, on this our daily planet. And no less, the beautiful, vital animal kingdom that produces them. From the chickens, ducks, and quails to all the rest, robins to penguins to swans. May they keep flourishing, and may we support their health and well-being. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.